Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, My First Season. My name is Greg, and we have a very, very special guest today. I first met this ex-GO in the St. Lucia, in probably the winter season 94-95. I have a very, very distinct memory of her. She doesn't know it yet, but we're going to talk about that on the podcast. She is from Mexico City. Her first season was in Huatulco in October of 1988, where she was an au pair hostess. However, since 2009, she has been living in Norway, and I find that extremely interesting. And when you hear why, you'll find it interesting as well. And we're going to talk about that too. So without further ado, everyone, please help me welcome Diana. Hola, Diana, ¿qué tal?
Hola, buenas tardes, Greg. How are you?
Oh, it's so good to hear your voice again. Thank you for so much for agreeing to come on the show. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. So interesting. Exciting.
Well, I find your life very, very interesting. I found you very interesting when I knew you and met you. And how I'd like to start is if you can take me back in time to where you were living and what you were doing. We know you're from Mexico City, but were you going to school? Were you working somewhere else? And how did you find out about Club Med?
Actually, I had just finished high school and I didn't really want to go to university right away. I wanted to travel. I want to get out of Mexico City. I felt, cities are not my thing. No, and actually, I heard about Club Med because I was dating someone that had been doing the Club Meds as a GM, and he kept mentioning Playa Blanca as a singles place or adults only, and he said the party was crazy and it was really a lot of fun, and that for someone like me who likes people and languages, that would be a great thing to do. And I remember that popped up my mind when my father said, you either go study or you get a job, right? And I was not going to stay in Mexico City and work there. No, never done it. And then I applied for the Club Med, and I remember I went to the offices. They're still in the same office, I believe, in Polanco, in Presidente Masaryk. I believe that's the road. I think they still have those offices there. So I went for an interview there. And they hired me like so fast. I was a bit like shocked, I thought it was going to be taking time, but they wanted me to leave already the next day. And of course, I remember my mom took me there. So she was with me. I was barely 18. I mean, I was 18, yes. And then I believe they gave me about a week time so I could pack and fix things and all that. And they mentioned Huatulco. And I was like, wow, Huatulco was this new place just being developed. It was pretty virgin in those days. Now I can imagine it's full of hotels. I haven't been back there since. And yes, 1 week later, I was in Huatulco. So it was very fast, very crazy.
Well, I'm curious, if they hired you on the spot, why did you go au pair then? Why didn't you just immediately get a contract?
They didn't have contract yet because in those days, I don't know if it's today the same. I believe a season was November, and was it May? May to November, November to May, something like that. And I was hired before that, and all the contracts for Mexicans at least, I believe they were taken. So they actually told me, obviously, also to test me, a bit like testing the staff. And when they proposed, I said yes. When they said you will have a room and food and you'll be at the beach or working, doing whatever it is I was going to do. Hostess, I didn't really have an idea what that was. I had never worked ever in my life before. It was my very first job ever. So for me, it was like, yes, please get me out of Mexico City. I was totally in. I didn't even think of a contract later. It was when I was already in Huatulco, then when they gave me the contract eventually.
So, and I take it you had never gone to a resort before, right?
Not like that. We did family vacations in small hotels, like say Ixtapa, Cihuatanejo. Those were our favorite places with the family. No, a resort, never. I had heard about it, but I knew nothing. I came out of high school. I was a city person. I mean, yeah, no, the whole thing was really exotic.
Did the person who conducted your interview tell you about the hours you would have to work and no days off and all that?
I don't remember, honestly. I don't remember, but I remember about the au pair that they said I wasn't going to get paid. I don't remember. Honestly, no remembrance there. Sorry about that. No.
So your first week, did you have any culture shock? Were you wide-eyed and like, what's going on here? Why is everyone dancing? Did you have any of
Well,
that?
the whole thing was insane. I remember when I arrived at the airport in Huatulco, then I believe the Club Med were the only ones using the airport. I believe, I'm not sure about that. But when we arrived, there was all these like blonde brown people wearing pariots and flowers in their head, and there was this music, and they were going crazy and waving and woo and welcome and bienvenue and the whole thing. I didn't speak really French there. My French was basically non-existent. And I remember they picked us up already wearing those parrots and the flowers. And then in the bus, there was a lot of screaming and singing and dancing. And when we arrived in the resort, everybody was wearing parrots and flowers in the head. And they had this really nice cocktail. I believe it had alcohol in it. What was amazing, I believe it was a planter's punch, something like that, or a tequila sunrise, maybe was that. It was orange. That I remember very, very well. And everybody's so tanned, and yeah, the perils and the flowers. I was shocked. I felt this euphoria, like it was the perfect thing for me.
Really? Okay,
Mm.
good.
Oh, imagine 18 years old from Mexico City.
That's
And
true.
suddenly you arrive.
I can't imagine, like, I'm sure most of the XGOs didn't come straight out of high school. That's for sure. So yeah, that must have been a lot to take in.
It was perfect. It was perfect. It wasn't a culture shock. I honestly, I didn't even believe I was in Mexico. It felt I was in another place, in another country. That wasn't Mexico for me. I mean, the Mexicans were there, but there weren't that many, and the tourists weren't that many Mexicans. The Geos, there were so many different nationalities. But by then, really, it was just the music, the parrots and the flowers in the head, and everybody dancing, and the cocktails. Everybody saying hi and so nice to me. And that was a bit of a shock because, Mexico City, like a big city, you don't look at anybody, nobody looks at you, and nobody talks to you. And that's how it has been. And suddenly everybody saying hi and big smile. And then, yeah, and all these foreign people. I mean, I hadn't been outside, okay, once to Germany, but, you know, it was amazing.
And back then, Huatulco was still a family village, I'm guessing?
No, it was still adults only.
It was?
Yes,
Huatulco was adults only in the beginning?
yes, yes, yes. It was
Oh, I did
adults
not
only.
know that. Okay.
And I believe it was the second season they opened. Yeah, I arrived for the winter season. I think they opened that same year,
Wow. Okay. I
in
did not know.
88, and I arrived at the end of the year
Okay.
for the second season.
I assumed it was
No,
always
no families,
family.
no
Oh,
children. And I remember they mentioned that in the job interview because they asked me how I was with like family and all that. And well, I've never been a child fan. So when they said you prefer a village with adults, I was like, of course. I
now
mean,
when you do your job, like start doing hostessing, did they have rules back then? Like I don't know, you have to put a spoon in the glass, only 2 GOs per table. Did they
yes,
or
yes, yes, of course, of course. Well, of course, when they said you were going to be a hostess, I had no clue what exactly that was. But of course, my manager, I don't remember who my boss was. That is terrible. But I remember, yes, that we had smoking and non-smoking sections. Of course, the first thing was like 2 smoking, non-smoking. And yes, there was only 2 GOs allowed per table, and we put the famous spoon in the glass. And I was assigned a lot to the smoking area. I don't know why. I don't smoke. I hate smoking, right? But yes, and yeah, only 2 GOs per table. And of course, I remember that they told me try to put all English people together. And if there's any Germans, try to put them together. Of course, I spoke German then. And if there's Mexicans or Spanish people, try to put them together, so they can communicate with each other. Yes, I remember that.
and you spoke German because one of your parents was German, correct?
My mother is German, yes.
That's right. Okay.
So yeah, in those days, I only spoke my very terrible English, very decent German and Spanish, and like a few words of French.
Did you have any kind of Club Med culture shock when you got there? Like what
Y-
anything they were doing that you were like, what is that? Like crazy science? I don't know. Some people consider crazy science culture shock, but
Well, the crazy signs were for me. They were always my nightmare. I
Me too.
never ever ever liked them. I'm sorry. I felt embarrassed the first night. I mean, everybody was so excited. I believe it must have been arrival day on a Saturday. And I remember when they put everybody to dance and they said, yeah, you have to do this every night while you work in Club Med. And I was like, okay, here we go. And then the music started and they were moving the hands and doing all these dance moves. And I was embarrassed. I was like, what is this? Oh, the shame. And I didn't know what they were doing. And I'm not exactly the best dancer. I wasn't then. And I was embarrassed. I remember. And yes, that shocked me a bit. And I was thinking, I will have to do this every night as long as I work in Club Med. And I did that every night for what, 17 years? Imagine.
You got through it. You just in your brain,
I survived it. I survived
yeah, in your brain, you just went
it.
to
Yeah.
you went to a safe place like I did. And
Well, at the moment, yeah, at some moment you become a robot and you just do it. And actually, no, there were times I had fun, of course. When I was on stage, every time I was on stage, I had fun. But when I had to sort of stand in front of the guest, I felt a bit like ridiculous. Like I shouldn't be standing in front of the guest, I should be on stage. But of course, in my first season, I didn't know there was going to be a stage or that I was going to be doing shows and stuff. I had no clue.
now, did you seek out the choreographer to do the shows, or did they
No, of
find you?
course not. Oh, they found me really, really quickly. And of course, I was like, oh, yes, I want to be in the show. And yeah, and then I discovered that I was very clumsy because I'm not a really good learner for that kind of dancing. It came after, but in the beginning, but it was fascinating. It was fascinating. Yeah, I think I did pretty much every show existing. I really liked it. I was never tired. I mean, with 18, 19, you're not tired. And yeah, no, I really liked all that. And well, it was pretty challenging also because in those days we had the famous GM show. And
Yes.
I remember not 2 weeks had passed and they put me in charge to making a GM show. And I was horrified. I was
Really?
like, what? Yes, 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 yes. I think they saw potential in me or something. Maybe not. I don't know. But I remember they made me do a GM show and I didn't even know how to dance. But then they said, oh, you can do comedy. And I said, well, why not? And I remember I got this one sketch. I think it's La Potion Magique, the magic potion. And I remember I think I only needed 4 gems or something, or
Could you tell
5.
the
I
listeners
needed
who don't know what the magic potion is, and including me, what, like, briefly, what
You
is
don't
that?
know the sketch of the magic potion?
No,
Oh, it's
no,
fantastic.
just tell me briefly
It's
what it entails. What's
it's basically a skinny guy that is on the beach in Club Med, and he's walking past 2 very good-looking ladies in bikini, and he's like, "Wow, I want to like talk to them," but they're totally ignoring him. So he's flexing his skinny muscles, and they totally ignoring him, and then they push him away, and he's a bit sad. So he finds this little bottle, and it says "Magic Potion, no, get strong fast." And he drinks the magic potion. There's a blackout, and the next second, there's this huge, muscular, good-looking guy standing there with the exactly same bathing suit. And then he's like, "Oh yes!" And then he sees the girls. Oh, and by then the girls, they're obviously all over a Geo. There's a good-looking Geo that's with his badge, and the ladies, oh yes, the Geo, the Geo. And then the muscular guy comes there and points at the lady, sort of like, "Come on, honey." And the ladies get all excited because they see this muscular guy. But what happens is that the Geo gets up, goes to the guy. You think they're gonna fight, but then they hug each other and they walk hand in hand together. And that's the end of the sketch.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Obviously, the Geo was a GM as well, dressed as a Geo.
Okay.
But yeah,
Wow.
I think it was 5 GMs. It was a huge success because that time, I will never forget that, there was this really skinny blonde guy that was very, very funny, and he was dying to be in the show. And there was, well, the classic, every week, the most good looking GM, ladies and men. There was this very, very muscular guy. I think he was a bodybuilder, and he was blonde as the skinny guy. They actually looked a bit like brothers, except the size. And they were so perfect, and they had the perfect costume for them. And then the ladies, okay, anybody wanted to be the ladies. I don't remember who played the Geo, but yeah, it was a big success. I remember the public went crazy. Huatulco was fully booked, I believe, that week. It must have been November. Maybe it was Thanksgiving week. Maybe, I don't know. But it was more than 1,200 guests. A lot of people. So the theater was packed and it was a success. That GM show, that I will not forget.
And now,
And then I've done that sketch after a few times, but not much. But that first one, no, it never was the same ever again.
and I'm assuming the village was full, probably like 1,200 for Christmas and New Year's. And how did it feel working your first Christmas and New Year's?
Well, we had a lot of stress because of the restaurant, of course, even though in those days there was still a lot of GOs. So we were a lot of hostesses, but the restaurant, of course, didn't have enough space for everybody at the same time. So we had to do some shifts, tell people, can you wait half an hour and stuff. But I remember I was just running up and down that restaurant. And of course, there was like a reception area, but it wasn't reception as we know in a hotel or in a Club Med nowadays. They had a planning office, a traffic office for transportation, and there was this reception, but it was only for information, for complaints or maintenance issues, and the famous bar beats for the bar. I was selling those bar beats. I remember there were three sizes. The biggest size of bar beats was like a $40 bag with lots of yellow, white, and orange beads. So we had shifts there as well. I like that. I like the reception part. The restaurant, it could get chaotic. And of course, you being the one sitting people, the classic, maybe they don't want to sit there. Maybe they want to be with their friends, but their friends are already in a table and two GEOs sat there or it's already taken. But no, I don't remember I mean, I know we worked every day, all day, and then rehearse all night, and we didn't sleep a lot. But yeah, I remember it was pretty packed.
Well, since you didn't,
Oh,
have much time to sleep and working 7 days a week, did you have time to learn any skills? As I'm trying to figure out, and my story is connected to windsurfing. Where
yes, that's
did
the
you
thing.
first learn to windsurf in Huatulco, or was it another village?
Actually, I tried to learn how to windsurf. There's one thing they told me. I remember that they said that when I had free time, because there was no day off, but free time, I could participate in all the sports. I had never done any of those sports. My sport was bodybuilding or weightlifting, and that was it. So yes, I tried everything. I remember archery, of course, windsurfing. Windsurfing, I was always looking at it like, "Ooh, what is that?" And I remember they had sailing, but that didn't really attract me too much. It was the windsurf guy, some French dude, who told me just try, and I started doing the lessons. And the problem is Huatulco has no wind and has a bit wavy conditions, so it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, and I didn't really get good at all. Not in Huatulco, it was a catastrophe. Actually, once that is a bit funny story, but it was a bit windier, so I thought, okay, finally some wind, let's try. And of course, I ended up so far away, I think almost abandoned the bay. And the security boat had to get me, and they were so angry at me, saying, we cannot be rescuing GEOs. But of course, I was new and I was young, and they were very nice about it, honestly. But I remember I got really scared at some point because I couldn't come back. And I couldn't even lift the sail because it was so wavy and it was really, really far away. So yeah, that was my first rescue that traumatized me.
Well, everyone gets rescued. Like they say, it's it takes 3 minutes to go out and 3 weeks to come back. But every beginner goes through that
Yes, but that
windsurfing.
traumatized me, and I swore myself I'm never gonna get rescued again.
Okay,
And
all
I don't
right.
know if I was, but maybe if equipment broke. But no, I was so like traumatized because I felt so bad for them that I had to come and get me. The GO. I mean, ooh, you don't
How,
go rescue GOs.
well, hey, I got rescued by my first season, and to make it worse, it was a very, very beautiful, the only female on this on the sailing and windsurf team that had to come get me. So I felt very emasculated. Okay,
You go.
but yeah, but I didn't mind as much, right? Okay.
No, I was pretty horrified. I mean that. Yeah, no, I remember that's when I started learning because I said, okay, you need to get better so they never, ever, ever rescue you again. Yeah.
Yeah. And you
But it
did,
wasn't really in
and you
Huatulco.
did, and you did. No, I know you did. Well, we're going to get into that. Roughly, how long did you stay? Like you arrived in October. Did you stay 6 months for your first season?
Yes, until the summer the next year.
Now, did you want to stop or did you want to continue?
No, they offered me Cancun. I went to Cancun after.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think there was the option of Playa Blanca or Cancun, but as a Mexican, we love the Caribbean, and I had been in Cancun before. In Cancun, the white sand. Plus, in
Yes.
those times, Cancun was, it was small, and the beaches were a dream. When they said you want to go to Cancun, it was also adults only. I said yes right away.
And it probably at that time, so if, I'm figuring if you were there in 88 or 89, Cancun, I think, was the first hotel on that strip, correct? So there wasn't probably a lot of
No.
hotels.
There was already hotels all the way to this roundabout when the discos are. The roundabout where the discos are in Cancun, there was already discos there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and I think the hotels were all the way up to there. There wasn't really much more. In Cancun, Club Med Cancun was, of course, the only one in that very point, the Punta Nizuc, where it's still nowadays.
Yeah, they have the ocean side and lagoon side.
Exactly. Yes. That was the only hotel as far as I remember. But the discos, they were already where they are nowadays, all those discos in Cancun.
Do you recall who your first chief of village was in Huatulco?
Yes, I believe it was Stefan Roena.
Oh, okay, from Brazil or Portugal?
No, he was French.
Oh, okay.
He's French. And I remember the chief of animation is a guy that Stéphane Joly. I think he's
Sounds familiar, that name.
acting, or
Yeah.
yeah, Stéphane Joly. He was my chief of entertainment, and the chief of sports eventually became also a chief of village. It was a Turkish guy called Meti Arisioglu, something like that. See, I remember
yes.
those names.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I remember who my chief reception hostess was. It was the wife. No, it wasn't the wife, not with Roena. It was after the next season. Because, of course, in November, they changed the team.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, but I remember those three. Those three, I remember them.
All right. So now let's fast forward a little bit. I met you in St. Lucia, the 94-95 winter season. Yes. And I'm going to tell you my distinct memory of you, because since you started in 88, by 94-95, you were very proficient in windsurfing. So I recall being at the beach. So when it was lunch and it was windy, you people who knew how to windsurf very well would jump on the shuttle bus and absolutely run to the beach to take advantage of the wind blowing in St. Lucia. Correct so far? Yes. So I was on the beach, and then I see this woman. You had long black hair, your arms and the back were built from windsurfing. And to me, you looked like Wonder Woman, and you were running. You had your harness on and you were running to get, I guess, one of the best boards and sails. Okay. So your long black hair is flowing, and also Wonder Woman's name is Diana. So I thought, well, this is perfect because she looks like Wonder Woman. And then I saw you windsurf. And by then, obviously, you were tacking and jibing, you could planing, 2 feet in the straps. So seeing you do that, that's what really made me want to windsurf like that. You were my inspiration to want to do what you did.
Really?
But by then you were that level, correct? Because that's what I remember. You got very good.
Yes, I was better, but no, I got way better after. But
well, sure, but from 88 to 94, you learned a heck of a lot, because it's such a vivid memory I have of you on that beach in St. Lucia, running.
Actually, Greg, I didn't do Club Med straight until 94. In 89. Was it 89?
Oh, you took a break?
Yes, it wasn't voluntary, but then I went to live in Cozumel, and then I went to live in England. I lived in London for almost 3 years.
And what was your job in St. Lucia?
In St. Lucia, I was boutique.
Boutique, okay. That's right.
I was boutique by then.
Did you like that village?
St. Lucia, I loved it. I loved the island, and I learned how to scuba dive, and I did my open water and my advanced open water. I remember scubaing by the pitons. That was
Yes,
a trip.
that's the two volcanoes, correct?
Oh my goodness, that was so amazing. No, I love San Lucia.
Yeah,
No, San Lucia, I have very good memories of that place. Very, very good.
it was a beautiful spot, even just to moor the boat. Right, you're right at the foot of these volcanoes, and
Yes, yes. And the windsurfing was amazing. There was always wind at
plus you
that
had
beach.
drift diving, if I recall. The scuba team, like the instructor would just put a buoy, and you would go in the current, and then the scuba boat would pick you up
Mm-hmm.
down the way.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes, that was very nice. Yeah, no, it was fascinating. And I think did they have fly? They had flying trapeze there too.
Yes, there was circus. Yes.
Yes, 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 of course. Punta Cana. Yeah, because I did Punta Cana before St. Lucia. And that's where I started the flying trapeze. I was a fan of that. I loved it. I wasn't that bad either. I have some nice video where I have a layout catch. And I believe it's from either Punta or Turks. I'm not sure, but great.
Well, let's run down some of your positions. Hostess, boutique. Did you do anything else in your years at Club Med? Any other different positions?
Yes, I was reception once they had reception, standard reception. But I remember one that was one of the most fun times I've had was 2 months au pair windsurf instructor in Cancun when Hammer was the chief of village, and I believe Hendel was the chief of sports or something of the sort. I did 2 months au pair windsurf instructor, and that's one of the good times I had. It was the only time I was ever in the sports team. No, my life in Club Med was always the administrative. So until I stopped, I was at the reception.
Well, why didn't you
But
want to? Why didn't you want to do a season as a sailing windsurfing G.O?
because I wanted to go windsurfing and surfing and scuba diving, and reception was the perfect because
Oh,
it
that's
was
true.
24 hours open. So I had different shifts. I didn't have to work at the same time every morning. One day I had the morning free, one day the afternoon free. So I could actually do all these sports. That's the reason I stayed at reception. Plus I got really good, and it was good for the languages, and I was learning something a bit more, for future. And especially, especially it was so I could do all these sports because I have always been a sports addicted person. And when it was in the winter, I could basically go snowboarding every day. And when you had those times, you could windsurf every morning or every afternoon, every day. And that, as a sports Geo, no, you could not.
You mentioned Hammer before. Was
Yes,
Hammer for you the most your most memorable chief? Would you say?
yes, hammer,
And why?
he has this amazing energy, and he was so kind. He was very supportive. He was the kind of person that always motivated us. And when you did make mistakes or did something super wrong, even super super wrong, he didn't just like go crazy or fire you. I mean, there was this how can I say it? He's fabulous. I mean, very positive,
I just want to
very
point out
motivated.
he is Canadian. Sorry, go ahead.
uh,
I'm Canadian, so no, I'm just making a joke. Canadian.
yeah, yeah, yes.
Maybe it's a Canadian thing. I don't know.
I don't know either, but he was always amazing. I mean, to me, he was amazing. Very kind always. There's this kindness. I mean, that man, from my part, can have the best karma forever and ever. I send him the best karma because, yeah, he was good. He was good.
Oh, in all your seasons, do you have like a top funny story you could share with us? Obviously, clean and appropriate
Yeah,
story.
I came up with a few stories,
Oh,
but some of them they were a bit more in the dangerous part. But
oh,
I have
any
no, I
funny
have
ones?
I have one. Okay, from
Okay.
from Huatulco, honestly, I don't remember much funny.
No, that's fine.
Uh,
It doesn't have to be Watuco, but
this
if you
one is
have
from Punta Cana, actually. That's when
okay.
Punta Cana was still a small village before they renovated and made it a humongous village.
What year was this around?
It was before St. Lucia. It
Okay.
was the famous
So
94, 95,
okay.
93, 94. It was the season before St. Lucia. And well, you remember that the shipwreck that was in
Yes.
Punta that apparently has disappeared.
Okay. Yes, that's right.
Well, in those days, he was pretty decent. He hadn't cracked in two. And one night, very illegally, we were partying, and we we're having this amazing rum what was the name of that rum in
Oh,
Dominican
was it the
Republic?
151? Was it? Or wait,
No,
no.
it was one
Oh,
with a yellow net around
okay.
the
Yeah, I can't remember the
bottle.
name, but I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, but so we basically kidnapped some of the kayaks, and after the disco, when pretty much everybody went to sleep, we kidnapped the kayaks and we took the bottle of rum with us. And I think we were two kayaks, and we went all the way to the shipwreck because there was a rope hanging from it, and we were like, we have to try to get on the ship, right? So I don't remember who I was with, sadly, but one of the guys started climbing on the rope, strong guys, and he made it to at some point somewhere on the shipwreck. And then he was like, come on, Diana, come up. And I'm like, yay, here I go. And then I'm trying to climb up. And suddenly my foot goes all the way inside the metal because it was all rusty, right? And basically the whole thing started to crack. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this ship is like gonna like fall on us or something. And then of course I had to get back down because I couldn't climb. And by then the canoe had turned around and I was under the canoe, and I was trying to save the bottle. And there was a lot of screaming and ha ha ha, and they were on the ship, and I was like just trying to stay on the canoe. Next day, well, we did not get fired, right? But obviously everybody heard about it. I don't know how they found out, but obviously, you know how it is. But that night was one of the nights I will never forget, that we kidnapped those kayaks, totally illegal. We were 4 GOs and we tried to climb that shipwreck. And how my feet just went straight to the rusty metal of the ship. So I never made it.
That could be a good thing,
That's,
though. Very good thing.
yeah. Oh, it was so much fun. And
In,
yeah, no, it's, oh God, gross.
in your in your time as hostess or reception GO, do you recall? Because I like to ask, I love dumb questions. So do you recall some of the dumb questions you were asked on the job? Like, when will it stop raining? Stuff like that. Do you recall any?
Yes, of course. Well, that was a classic. I
Yeah.
mean, when
Oh
they get
yeah.
angry at you because the weather is not good. Well,
Well,
that
they
was
well they
more.
want to
That
well
was
no
more like,
they want to know a specific time. They said, what time is it going to stop raining? Not that it was raining. Yes, that was an affront, but they actually wanted you to tell them what time exactly. That's the
yes, that yes, but honestly, we had. Oh, I need to tell you this story. This is
okay.
one of the. But I wasn't present, but I know it happened. It was in Punta Cana, but that was when they started building the new area. I remember a very upset GM who had one of the newer rooms. He came to reception going berserker because there had been a tarantula in his room. So he killed the poor tarantula, took it all the way to reception, and threw it on the receptionist.
Okay,
Yes,
that's
yes, that was a
not
bit like,
not
what?
not cool. And as you
No,
know,
no, no, no. But that's the kind of thing.
well, as you know,
Uh,
if you've been to Punta, the tarantulas are everywhere, right?
yes, or in Huatulco too. I had a pet tarantula in Huatulco.
Really?
Suddenly, it was inside the room suddenly, and I was like, oh, what do I do? So it was one of the safe ones because by then we had seen a few, and they say, yeah, they're not poisonous. No, I caught it and I kept it in like a glass container as a pet. I
Really?
wasn't really sure what it ate, but I remember someone said just give it raw liver or something. So I remember I put the raw liver in it, and I had the pet tarantula for a while until it escaped. And when I tried to catch it, the little bugger went into the air conditioning system. And
Did,
that was the last time I saw the tarantula. I don't know where it ended up,
did your pet
but
spider have a name?
Lencha.
Lencha? What does that
Lencha.
mean?
I have no idea. That was the name of
Okay.
my tarantula, Lencha. And it was black and like the size of a hand.
Okay,
So it
so
wasn't a little one.
so in Spanish that name doesn't mean anything? No, there's no translation.
Lencha? No, it's a
Oh,
name.
okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever
Yeah.
get stung by a scorpion in all your time in Mexico?
That is such a good question. I'm so glad you asked this because I have a paranormal story. I
Oh,
was brushing my teeth in that very same room where the tarantula showed up. And I remember I was by the sink and I felt a little tickle under my foot. I was barefoot, but I didn't move. I kept doing. And when I walked away, I turned around and it was a tiny blonde scorpio. They're supposed to be deadly, right? It was just there.
Yes, the smaller ones are usually
Yeah, the smaller
yeah,
ones, almost transparent, yellowy. I mean, they're. I think if they bite you, I mean, if they sting you, you like.
it
If you
hurts.
don't get antidote, you die. I mean, at least that's what I remember from those days. Well, the little bugger, he just went right by my foot because he must have thought, oh, warm and cozy. But he didn't move. So when I moved away, he was just there. And he wasn't scared. No, it's not like the tail was up. And I got really like, whoa, like, what is this? I'm like, oh my goodness. So I caught it too, because I don't like to kill insects or animals. I do that with cockroaches too. I catch them and then I put them outside. Well, I caught the little scorpio and put it outside. But I remember my heart was beating because those are poisonous and they kill you. And it didn't sting me. And it was under my foot quite a while. That was weird.
Well,
So
good thing
no,
you
I don't think
avoided
I've been
that.
stung by scorpions. I've been stung by wasps, of course, and fish. But
Yes.
scorpion, not that I remember, no.
All right. Roughly, you said before roughly 17 years. I mean, not consecutive, but 17 years in Club Med?
Yep, pretty
Roughly?
much.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you did you ever get outside the North American zone at all, or always in the North American zone?
Well, it was basically because when I stopped after the season in Cancun, not on my own, I went to live in Europe. As I said, I was 3 years in Cozumel. I saved up the money and then I went to travel Europe. And when I came to London, England, I ran out of money. So I had to get a job there. And I stayed there for about 2.5 years, three, until the weather just got me. It's always like very humid, around the 10 Celsius, 11, very humid. And my hands started to get like arthritic. I was 23 years old or something. So I remember the Club Med office was in front of Harrods, the big shop. And I went one day, I just walked by, saw it, and I said, maybe it's time to go and try Club Med again and get out of this weather, because if not, I'm going to like lose my fingers. And I went there and they gave me a date where they were doing those mass interviews. And same thing, I had an interview time. I went in and they checked and said, oh, you've worked in Club Med before? Yes. Where? With who? Okay. Do you speak some French? I'm like, oui, even though my French was terrible, but I had rehearsed the sentences. I had a friend that helped me rehearse the classic sentences they ask you. Parlez-vous français? Pourquoi vous voulez travailler à Club Med? Or why you want to work in Club Med? So I rehearsed it and memorized them, even though I wasn't really sure what I was saying. But it must have sounded pretty decent because they liked the little French I had, but of course they were interested in the German and the English and the Spanish. And same thing, after the interview, they said, so when do you want to leave? You want to leave tomorrow? And I'm like, no, I need at least a week. I need to quit from my other job, right? And same thing, 1 week later, I was being flown to Hammamet. So automatically then I already had a European contract. And that's when I did a lot of traveling. I traveled all over.
Hammamet is Tunisia?
It's Tunisia, yeah. No, I mean, imagine when they told me you're going to Hammamet, I was like, excuse me, where's that? I had no clue where that was, right? Then she said Tunisia, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they're sending me to Africa, right? And yeah, there was another culture shock arriving at that place. That was fun. I had never seen the desert before. I was in the Sahara. I saw camels. I rode camels. Wow.
In addition to Hammamet in that zone, or Asia, Europe, where else did you work?
I did almost all the Caribbean, from
I mean
to,
overseas in North Africa.
you
Like
mean,
where else in
okay.
Europe or North Africa or Asia did you?
Okay, no, North Africa, there was only Tunisia that one season, but I did Turkey a few times. I did Israel.
Which resort? Which resort in Turkey?
In Turkey was Kemer. It was Beldibi. That doesn't exist anymore, and something called, no, not Beldibi. Yes, in Beldibi. And Foça, that's near Izmir. I did those three.
Good windsurfing in Foça.
Yes, there I got a lot better. Kemer I did like 3 times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, Kemer was the party place. And
where in Israel?
In Eilat.
Eilat. Okay, me too.
Eilat, yeah, I arrived actually after there was this accident in the hot village that was in the north of Tel Aviv.
Yep, Arziv, yes.
Arziv, yeah, there was this incident.
Yeah.
So after that, I arrived in Israel. So I remember some of those Arziv Geos were there. That was a really interesting season, the Israel.
What year
And I
were
haven't
you
been back
in
since.
Coral Beach?
Yes, in Coral Beach.
What
And I
year?
was in the boutique.
What year?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
96 maybe?
Where was your last resort?
My last Club Med?
Yes.
I believe it was St. Moritz in the winter of 2010, 2011.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's still fairly recent.
Yes. I was already working for this museum where I work now.
Well, that was my next question. So today you speak roughly 7 languages. You're from Mexico City. You've been in Norway. You've been living in Norway. And if you could tell them where you work in Norway.
Yes, I live in the Lofoten. Those are islands high up in the Arctic. And I work for a Viking museum.
Okay.
They found the archaeological remains in the 80s, and it's been a museum since 95. So I've been working in that museum since 2010.
Is that specifically why you moved to Norway?
Pretty much. I started visiting Norway from 2006, but only on vacation. And that is the funny story too, a bit. It's because I like black metal, music, black metal. And
okay, so you don't like the hokey pokey, crazy science. So you prefer black metal. Okay.
Black metal, thrash metal, death metal. I love that, but especially black metal.
Okay.
And the Norwegian black metal is fabulous. And like many of us who are now living in Norway from all over the world, I came to Norway to see the scene of black metal. I wanted to live it, and oh boy, I did.
Oh, really? Okay, so it wasn't the Vikings that drew you there.
No, it was black metal.
Okay.
The Vikings was basically the first job I had in Norway before the museum. Was in a hotel in the mountains, really pretty. And there was this girl working in the kitchen, and she said, "Oh, Diana, you like Vikings?" I always liked Vikings. Metal and Vikings goes together. And she said, "Oh, that there's this amazing Viking museum in the Lofoten." And I've always dreamed to go to the Lofoten because they're so beautiful. I mean, it's one of those travel destinations a lot of people have. It's so pretty here. And suddenly I saw this website where the Viking house showed up. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have to work there. It was like in my mind right away. But by then, that winter, I was working in Cervinia in Italy. And it was 2010 where the Eyjafjallajökull volcano exploded in Iceland. I don't know if you remember that. That was in 2010. And the ash basically blocked planes from Milano airport. And I was in Cervinia. So Milano was like my nearest airport. So we were getting stuck. And we couldn't leave. And I remember I applied that same winter to work in the museum. And I got a job. So I left by train via Germany. I have family in Germany. And then I eventually made it all the way to the Lofoten. But I got a job. I mean, the second I saw the picture of that museum, I said, I am going to work there. That's going to be my working place. I knew it, I felt it, and I got it. And I'm still here.
Now, did you have to study, once you got the job, study up a lot on Viking history and culture?
It came so naturally. I was like a sponge. I already knew a lot. I knew the mythology. I've always been into Viking mythology. No, it all came really natural. I had to learn the language, of course. Well, it wasn't that easy because in Norway they have a lot of dialects. So I remember I learned with this one book and 2 CDs. And I basically memorized the book. I got really good in my book style of Norwegian. They call it bokmal. And when I arrived up here, they have this very crazy dialect and I couldn't understand the word. So basically my Norwegian went from decent to 0. But they were just happy that I spoke all the other languages because of the tourism that comes here. It's very international. So yeah, I started working for the museum and it was first just a summer job. And that's why when my summer contract was over, I went back to the Club Med for the winter. And that's when I did my last season that was St. Moritz.
All right. I have a ex-Geo friend who lives in Arizona. She will be coming on the show at a later date. She has a history degree. She's very well immersed in Viking culture. Now, for her, she hates when she watches a show like Vikings on the History Channel, and it's full of historical inaccuracies. So, can you watch something now that takes place, like, I don't know, the Last Kingdom or Vikings, and enjoy it? Or are you picking out things like, oh no, the helmet's wrong, that's not the right sword, the costumes?
The costumes.
The costumes, so they get it wrong mostly, right?
Yes, I suffer a lot. It's like a pain in the heart when you see the things they put on the actors. I mean, it's like it's not Club Med or Game of Thrones, Don't just put a nice costume designer make fantasy costumes, especially if there's so much findings. You can have an amazing wardrobe with clothing based on like findings. So it's not really that difficult. But yeah, that I remember from Vikings. Well, the Viking community in Scandinavia is pretty united. Everybody knows each other, and the reenactors, they take it very seriously. We take it very seriously. We have to have it handmade. It has to be based on something, and it takes a lot of time to get the clothing done. I am not talented to make my own clothing. I learned how to make Viking shoes, for example, but I trade. I make Viking beer, so sometimes I trade and I get things. So now I have my little wardrobe, and of course, it's like a thing of respect. So when you see these terrible costumes they put on those kind of series, it doesn't really help. It doesn't really help Viking history and what the Vikings were.
Okay, I'm going to back you up a little bit. You mentioned Viking beer. Are you saying you reenacted a recipe from Viking times and then drank the beer?
I was shown how to make something archaeologically acceptable, and we have the equipment to do it in the museum. And I learned it. The first time I saw this, I think he was the curator. He was doing that. Same thing. I said, oh, I'm going to learn how to make that Viking beer, and I'm going to be the Viking beer brewer. So I have become that pretty much. But I only do it when there's the Viking festival in the summer.
How's it taste?
But yeah, it's very sour because obviously we don't use oxygen-free containers like in a brewery. It's made in wooden containers. Lately, I have to use an iron kettle because the wooden containers broke. But the whole thing is made as the Vikings would have made it. And even though I fermented in a plastic, fermentation vat now, by then a lot of oxygen has come in. So it ends up pretty sour. It doesn't get that strong, but I believe once we got it almost up to a 6%, what was a big success. But I used a lot of honey. I like to put honey on my Viking beer because of the taste to counteract the sourness. It's called a braggot, if I'm not wrong. Anyway, and it's a lot of fun. So of course, once you have your official Viking beer, Viking reenactors, give them the real food, the real beer, everybody goes crazy. And we don't have hops up here. We only have this yarrow flower. So I use that as my hops. It's bitter and it sort of helps with the taste. And it's very interesting. I don't know if you would like it, but it doesn't taste
I would
like
definitely
your
try.
typical beer.
I would definitely try it if you're in, Norway.
Yeah,
well,
come up here and during the Viking festival, you do
as the Vikings do. Okay, yeah. Well, I better stop here because I can probably talk a lot longer on this. I want to take you back to Club Med just for a bit. Mm-hmm. So, since you've done so many seasons, this might be a hard question for you, or it's not. Is there one season in particular? Like, was it? I use the word magical. Did you ever have a magical season? Was it your first one because it was your first one, or is just it's too it's impossible because you've worked in so many different sectors and zones that they're all special in their own way? Or is there one that stood out to you?
Honestly, no, there's not only one. I had many magical seasons.
Oh, good. Okay, that's
many,
good.
Like many. It's easier for me to say was the one season I didn't really like too much. Actually, no, yeah, maybe one. But no, I had magical seasons everywhere I went because I traveled so much. I went to all these exotic countries. Remember, I'm Mexican. When you end up in Turkey, in Tunisia, in Israel, in the Alps. I remember the first time I saw snow. I mean, it all becomes magical. So no, honestly, there wasn't just one. I cannot credit only one. There were too many really magical seasons.
Yeah, and it's true that is it true that back then, like when you were a Mexican GO, it would be a long time before you'd even leave the Mexican villages, right? Like they would put you to
Yes, they would make
Cancun,
you
Playa,
do, yes.
Huatulco. So
You
yeah,
had to do all the Mexican villages, and then if you were lucky, I think you could end up in Turks. In Turks, I think they have some Mexican geos. So at least when I was there, they had a lot of Mexican geos.
you
Yeah,
worked in
no, as
Turks
a
and Caicos though,
Mexican,
right?
yes, also, yes, yes.
Do you have a
But
favorite
I had
JoJo?
a European contract then.
You have a favorite JoJo story?
Yes, of course, the JoJo story. Oh my goodness! But imagine what could be the best JoJo story than windsurfing. There was almost no wind. I was in one of those really fat boards, those very stable boards with one of 4.5, those pink and yellow sails from the
Yeah.
old days.
Yes.
You remember those?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, and I was just like navigating quietly. It was really pretty. It was getting like soon they were going to close. And yes, I saw the famous shadow. And of course, the first thing, one thinks is shark, right? And then I see a fin. I'm like, oh my goodness, a shark. And no, it was Jojo. It was Jojo. And he started playing with me. He started doing little zigzags under the board. And then he would get his nose out. He would like go sideways. And with his eye, he would look at me. And then he would do another zigzag under the board, go to the other side, get his nose out and look at me. And I knew it was Jojo because he's full of scars, right?
Yes.
And it was him, and we were like that for about half an hour or more. That was incredible.
It's
That
great.
was
It's a great,
incredible.
yeah, it's a great experience, right? You're there with a wild dolphin just having fun.
Yes, and of course I didn't want to risk going in the water, so I didn't fall down. I just let him do his thing, and of course I was like talking to him. But that was magical. That was amazing. Yes, that was so amazing.
Oh,
Yes,
great.
yes,
Okay. Are you ready for the last question?
yes.
Okay. So if someone listening to this was thinking about applying to Club Med, but is on the fence about it, would you suggest they do apply to try it out, even if it's just for 6 months?
Of course, it's incredible experience. And even though it may have changed, it's still Club Med. You still eat with the guests. You still can do the sports when you have time. Well, now they have days off, so amazing. You can still go on excursions with the groups. You still meet amazing people. Of course, no, I suggest anybody should try to do the Club Med. And if you're shy, you're a bit, on the quiet side, it will get you to be an extrovert. It helped me so much. And for the job I do now, you have no idea how much Club Med has helped because we have to entertain guests. We have Viking festivals, Viking feasts, and basically I'm a GO here.
who
I am
speaks
a GO
who
in
speaks
this
Norwegian?
retreat, in Norwegian, in German, whatever language you want. But of course, no, absolutely. No, I say never mind the salary, don't think about that. But as an experience, yes, definitely do it. And I say it
Right.
doesn't matter which age you are. I mean, I don't know how strict they are with age nowadays, but I say go for it. Absolutely.
Cool. Great answer.
I may not want to do an entire season anymore, but honestly, I would love to go back to Cancun and do a 1 month au pair windsurf instructor or two.
Me too. Okay. Let's
I
go.
would
Yeah.
totally do that, like tomorrow. If they tell me, okay, Diana, would you do it now? Yes. I pack my bag and go to Cancun for a month and I do the au pair windsurf instructor. Yes.
Well, I really want to thank you and appreciate you sharing your story with us here today, Diana. This has been great.
My
Awesome.
pleasure. Yeah.
Now, will you say, we're going to see you all next week, but will you say, I've never asked someone to do this, will you say goodbye in all the 7 languages you know?
Yes.
You like ciao, hola, can you give me one of that? And then all the languages you speak?
Well, yes, of course, no? Adios, hasta la vista, arrivederci. Bonsoir. Well, it's nighttime here now, even though it's only 15 o'clock. We're entering the dark times in Norway. Auf Wiedersehen. Of course, Norwegian. Wait, Norwegian. Ha det bra. Så fint å snakke med deg i dag. Det var så veldig hyggelig, så jeg koser meg masse.
Wow, that's amazing.
I can say hyvä päivän jatkoa. That was Finnish. I'm learning Finnish now also.
Oh my God. Okay. She does it all. She does it all.
No, it's just I like these languages. They're so exotic and so fabulous.
Well, everyone, that was Diana from Mexico City, now in Norway. We want to thank you for listening. We'll see you all next week.
Yes, for
Bye.
anybody that's coming to the Lofoten, come and visit.
You heard her. I'll put the link up to her museum in the podcast description. And we'll see you all next week. Bye. Say bye, Diana.
Bye. Bye. Thank you so much, Greg.